Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex, as per usual. Joining me are my two co-hosts, Noble.
Hello.
And Hugh.
Hello.
And this week, we've got a very exciting patch episode for you all. There's a big patch. Notes just got spoiled today. We're going to be going over all the patch notes, talking about the nerfs, buffs. A lot of new cards got spoiled, which I think none of us were really expecting. There are like a lot of cards that are going to be coming in this Aphelios bundle. So we've got a lot to talk about. I think without further ado, let's just jump right into it. I think we want to start with the cards that have gotten nerfed so far.
I believe at the top of the list is MF.
Yeah.
So, we just got to dig right into it. Yeah. There's a lot of big changes, pretty much hits to every competitive, pretty much every tier 1 deck, I think, except with maybe one notable exception, which we'll get
I'd just
into.
like to clarify for everyone, our Wiggly boy is safe.
Yes.
The Wiggly Burblefish
everyone
escaped
take a
nerfs,
deep breath.
Twisted Fate.
In fact, I think he got buffed a little.
Yeah. We can talk about that, some relative positioning things. I think that we should just go through them one by one, so I guess we'll kind of mix together nerfs and buffs, but that's okay.
Totally fine.
So,
if we just read down the patch notes one at a time, that'll work.
Misfortunes, level 2, got just removed Overwhelm. That's all.
That's a lot.
Actually, yeah, I think that this change is actually pretty relevant. Now, I'm not really certain the percentage of games that Misfortune needed Overwhelm on her flip side to win, right?
Yeah, because that's the thing. You have to think this only matters in games where Misfortunes was flipped and that didn't kill your opponent without the Overwhelm.
Yeah. Now, notably...
And then if you still win that game, this nerf also didn't matter.
Yeah. Now, notably, Misfortune having Overwhelm actually really does go a long way towards killing that.
Yeah, because she does 3 damage to the thing blocking her, so it kind of lets her skill double up because it takes 3 toughness off whatever blocks her, and then...
It basically makes her flip side unblockable,
so
let's be honest, right? And it's really quite difficult to deal with flip misfortune, largely because she just ends the game so fast. And the fact that she doesn't have Overwhelm anymore, maybe you'll get to untap a few more times, and maybe that'll be enough to...
I mean, that's just 4 less
answer,
damage you get to take.
Yeah.
Straight, right off the board, you just take 4 less damage on her.
I think it's pretty relevant.
If you have
actually.
a chump blocker for everything.
Well, I mean...
Yeah.
Or, no, just her.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's
I guess, technically, yes, you would need a chump blocker for the other things, but
Yeah.
But I think the best parallel is Darius's flip.
Yeah.
Darius is the only champion in the game that adds 4 power on his flip and has trample. This Misfortune didn't technically add 4 power, but she did because she had trample, and she, like you said, she deals 3 damage on her attack.
It did the Lee Sin thing where it deals damage to the unit blocking it and has Overwhelm, so
Exactly.
doubles up on the damage.
So it's essentially doing more. Yeah, I think it's relevant. I think that it might not actually influence the result of many of the games played in it, but it's probably going to change the feel of the games at the very least.
And most notably, this matters astronomically more for Scouts than it does for other MF decks like Pirates, because Scouts was just flipping MF so much more than Pirates was.
Pirates didn't really flip MF.
It's mostly, it's 90% Scouts.
Yeah, I'm just gonna straight up say that I don't think this nerf affects Pirates at all.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Not Pirate.
100%.
I think it's basically only Scouts. That's the only deck that actually flips that card pretty much ever.
Which is funny because in their notes they're like, her level 2 lethality does not quite line up with the difficulty of her quest, and it's like, you seem to think this quest is easier than it is because it's really hard if you don't have Scouts.
It's incredibly
seeing
hard.
3 attacks is. If you play her on turn 3, it's 3, 5, 7, 9. Yes,
and
she should kill you on
she
turn
attacks
9.
on 11.
No, because when you attack
the 4th time
and
you
flip
attack,
her,
she'll get the flip, but it's by the time she's attacking on turn 9 or whatever it is, the actual
9 or 10.
It's just they're already dead if you're playing Pirates, right? If you actually needed the damage from the Overwhelm or whatever, you aren't going to miss it until turn 11.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess rallies do mess up that math a little bit even without Scout, but just in general, it's
still.
It's hard.
It's pretty much
really
only
hard.
happening in Scout.
So Victor got a very small but very consequential change. Well, actually, he got 2 changes. He creates a hex core upgrade both on play and round start. And his level up condition went down by 1.
Yeah.
So I think the level up condition going down by 1 is way, way, way less relevant than the other change.
Oh, for sure.
Because
the amount of times I've played this card and thought to myself, well, why doesn't it just do this? Not in limited, by the way. This card is insane in limited before and is way more insane now. It was one of the best champions in limited before, and now it's just whoa.
Yeah. It basically just makes this card go from a 4 mana 2/4 that does nothing to a 4-mana 3/4 with a random keyword. I mean, I guess it's technically 5 mana because you have to spend.
Yeah,
on
but
that.
still,
like,
having the 1 spell mana left over is pretty easy.
It's really easy.
To
Yeah,
just
it's-
happen to randomly have 1 spell mana, even on
Just
turn
take turn
4.
1 off.
Yeah, if
and
you
then,
didn't have a 1
like,
drop.
Does
I think that this is a big deal. Like
I think this could very easily make him a playable champion.
It makes it much more similar, more like Draven as well in the decks that are trying to
I was
abuse the
thinking about this.
rummage things.
Instead
Like
of-
the play, if you can turn that extra like hex core upgrade into a card with rummage or sump dredger or whatever, like
Or just-
this card might start challenging Draven for a spot in those decks. Like I thought he might initially with his like ballistic bot-esque text, but the fact that he generates one now is a big deal.
And even if you just like pay the thing to play him, like you pay the extra mana for the Hexor upgrade that turn, like he's now at 4 plus a spell mana, not an embarrassing play because he's a 3/4 that has an extra random keyword. Like a 3/4 with Fury or whatever is way better at holding down the fort than a 2/4.
Very good. There's going to be a lot of times where you just randomly end up with the attack token and play him, and he gets quick attack or whatever. and you
or
just
a
get to get in
3/4
for
with
3.
lifesteal when they just played their Draven. It's
or
this
like
is great.
elusive or whatever. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really good ones you can hit on when you're attacking. On
Scout.
on defense it's a little bit less good, but still, I think that this is a big change for Victor. So I hope that he sees a little bit more play in the future now.
So then now that's all for champions. We didn't get any TF changes. Grand Plaza had the, I think, predicted nerf of losing the plus. It's now +1/+0 instead of +1/+1.
I think absolutely everyone called this from like forever ago.
Yeah,
if
as
there
soon
was
as
a
one
nerf.
person mentions it, everyone's like, yeah, that's the line.
It's clearly the way to nerf this card if you're going to. I think we've talked a little bit in the past about whether or not this card should receive a nerf. We sort of landed on like we didn't think it necessarily needed one at the time. Do you guys stand by that? Do you think that this nerf maybe didn't need to happen?
I think that it wasn't completely necessary, but it will increase the health of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think any hot take. I don't think any of the tier 1 decks were playing this card. I think that the tier 1 decks were, when
Not
we did our
Scouts,
meta tier
really?
list, I do think that Zoe Azul was a tier 1 deck. And I think,
Scouts? Even?
oh,
Not Scouts?
Yeah.
when I think tier 1 decks right now, I think Zoe Lee, Burblefish, and Draven. I don't put Scouts up there anymore, honestly.
Honestly, I kind of agree with you at this point. I think Scouts is like tier 1.5, but it's like very arguably still tier 1. It's still very powerful. It's still a very good deck.
Yeah, but the decks I was thinking of are more S tier, like more like the like tier 0.
No,
like, these decks
I
are
agree.
Really,
I
really
just-
The
good.
Burblefish plans really quite hurt the Scouts decks quite a bit. They had a hard time dealing with all the elusive bodies that just randomly killed them. And this Burblefish decks had just enough interaction to be able to race. So regardless of that, if we think that Scouts had like fallen down a little bit and then we see a nerf to Misfortune, a nerf to the Grand Plaza, are we just like over the Scouts deck, or is this nerf to the Grand
I'm pretty
Plaza a
off-
big deal?
It nerfed both of the 3 mana payoffs. Like I'm pretty off the deck now, and I wasn't playing it before.
Yeah, so it's just like, is this Grand Plaza deck nerf going to kill Scouts? Is it going to kill all the Plaza Ace decks? Do you think that the +1/+1 really actually mattered that much from the +1/+0?
I think it mattered a ton because I don't know. Okay, it's certainly, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but ever since Grand Plaza got printed and started seeing play everywhere, it feels like the card Withering Whale doesn't exist anywhere.
That's pretty fair.
At
Yeah,
all.
I agree.
And normally, like, let's look at all the creatures. So many of the
I actually
creatures
didn't
that
even think about that. I was
Yeah,
mostly
it's
thinking
a
about
really
like
good point.
how much better it is when the Badger Bear, their Grizzled Ranger makes, is a 4/4 instead of a 4/5. Because
Also
like the amount
relevant.
of times I would have traded with it if it was a 4/5, but
well,
it got to eat my
that's still
thing.
relevant
Yeah.
because Grizzled Ranger's back to 1 toughness.
Yeah.
Guess what else is back
I
to
didn't
1
even think
toughness?
of Withering Whale
All
or
of the-
Avalanche. Yeah,
All of
totally.
the specters, all of the blighted caretaker tokens, all of the.
I don't think those matter as much.
They
because
don't
they're
matter as
ephemeral.
much, but they matter.
That was what I was going to say about this card nerf, is that I think that this matters a lot less for the ephemeral deck than it does for Scouts.
Right, that is true, but I still think it matters.
Yeah,
because
that-
Withering
certainly.
Whale now, because
Saves you a ton of health instead of like... Yeah.
Or can save your relevant pieces that are getting
totally.
attacked by these random things from Challenger.
And I didn't quite track that one of the things that we initially thought might be bad about this card is it makes you play your units before you attack, which leaves you open to board wipes, but it's very hard to avalanche your opponent's board if they're getting the toughness boost too. It's like not going to kill them a lot of the time. And so, yeah, this matters a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a big deal. and these Grand Plaza decks are going to feel significantly less oppressive after these changes. And I think that the meta's gotten to a place right now with the existence of Burblefish that taking turn 3 off to cast the Grand Plaza is not going to be particularly beneficial anymore. Like, I don't think it's going to be wise going forward anymore.
I agree. I just think that I thought the card was bad originally. I was obviously wrong.
Yeah, we
I
were
think
wrong
that
there.
it might be actually bad now.
Now it might actually
Like
be
definitely
bad.
still playable in these decks, but it's
still gonna do
getting
dumb
really
things
rough to
sometimes,
justify.
but-
I don't want to say bad. I want to say more niche.
Yeah, more niche.
More niche sounds accurate. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right.
Does it affect the Targon decks that much? Because those creatures were always the beefiest.
Those ones are the ones that I think are going to be the most resilient to this change, who
Yeah.
weren't using the Grand Plaza as some dumb broken
Aggro
combo piece. Like they were basically just
Solari
using it as a
Sunforger
good.
still eats your best creature and gains them 6 life.
Yeah,
so like
they're still just going to use it as a good value engine. So I think that they're going to be the decks that walk away the best from this.
and like
for
Shield
sure.
Bearer doesn't care about the toughness at all.
Yeah, there's a
and
lot
like
of
Soul and Eclipse Dragon also probably
don't
care
care
about it
at all. Yeah, they don't die anyway.
Like
Whatever.
it matters a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's much more marginal taking something from 7 health to 8 than 2 to 3.
I was just about to say the 8th power is a lot less
Or
relevant
toughness,
than
or health.
Absolutely, yeah.
both sides. But
So I think that deck probably won't miss it too much, but I think that deck has been having a real hell of a time with all these Burblefish floating around anyway, so hasn't been doing too well regardless.
Okay, so Homecoming. Does either of you even know what the? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I missed
I know
War
exactly
Chefs.
what this card
I missed
did.
War Chefs. Sorry, guys.
Oh.
War Chefs got buffed. Yay! It is now a 2/2 instead of a 1/3. For our newer listeners, War Chefs is a 2-mana. Now 2/2 that says support, give my support ally +1/+1 this round. And this card used to be a 2/3 and was kind of the de facto Demacia 2-drop for a very long time. It was really good after Fleet Feather Tracker, just kind of on curve. It was also really good with like Fiora.
Bright
and
Steel
then-
Protector is a big one
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
and then when it
got
was-
nerfed, and now it's
now it's disappeared
Yeah, nobody
completely.
plays it in anything, right?
Because a 1/3 cannot swing into very
Anything.
many boards.
Yeah,
at all.
anything.
And I think a 2/2 can swing into a lot more boards, so this card might be good.
Absolutely. This card has got much better. I'm still not going to run out of my seat to go play this card because I think we also need to remember that when this card was seeing play, it was also like a patch ago.
It was
or whatever
Foundations.
we-
It was Foundations. I don't even know if Bilgewater was out.
Yeah, it was like a long time
Targon
ago,
was
so-
definitely not around.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So like I also just kind of don't think that it's going to
I
be
could just
strong
wrong
enough
about that.
anymore.
But whatever.
Even if it's played a little more recently, like the decks that it saw play in was mostly the Fiora Shen and accompanied with Fleet Feather Tracker. I think that Bright Steel Protector does a more effective job of that nowadays anyway. I think that in a lot of those decks, these Fleet Feather Trackers have been getting cut, and a lot of the Bright Steel Protectors have even gone down to 2 or whatever. Like I just don't see this card coming up to a 2/2 changing the game all that much.
That's fair, but it
unfortunately.
is like 3 power and toughness of stats potentially spread over 2 bodies for 2 mana, which is like still fine.
I mean, all right,
Fun.
think about it this way. If this card wasn't seeing play after Grand Plaza came out and Grand Plaza could make it a 2/4 with support +1/+1, I find it very like it's a
It's
lot
just not gonna
harder.
happen.
Yeah, it's probably a lot harder for it to still like see play even now. Like
That's fair, but I also don't think that this card is particularly good with Grand Plaza. I think that like, you can just do things that are better with Grand Plaza. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, War Chefs feels like it wants the cards it's supporting to have Challenger already, basically. So like, and that pairs innately with the Grand Plaza, but also the payoffs for having Challenger don't pair with the Grand
Would
Plaza.
we play this
So,
card
like,
in Shen Fiora?
I mean, I don't think
kind of
I'm
tempted to, but
I don't think I'm.
I don't. What are you cutting?
I'll
for?
try it. Right, like
that's the question.
Yeah, because I
Probably
can't.
some of
I'm
your spells.
just off the top of my head, I can't think of any card I want to cut for
It's
this.
pretty good putting on like River Shaper, but it does mean that if you play this 2-drop into a 3-drop, you then only have 1 spell mana, which is
yeah,
not
having
good.
Sharp Sight on turn 3 is very relevant for your River Shaper or your Fiora.
Yeah, Bright Steel's Protector's only in there because it's so good.
If somebody comes and tells me it's really good, I'm not gonna like doubt it. I'm probably gonna try it, but I think I'm gonna. This is one of those ones where I'm gonna wait for somebody to tell me it's good first before I try this one.
That's fair.
All right, that's where I'm
Homecoming
putting it.
Is now Old Will of Ionia. So it went from cost 5 to cost 4,
Woohoo.
and this is the recall an ally unit or landmark to recall an enemy unit or landmark.
I think this card's good now.
What? I was about to say that I think this card is still completely unplayable.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that, which is why
Why?
I said that. Because, okay, think about it this way. Noxian
Make this
Fervor.
upsized, and it's
Okay, so-
unnerfed will of Ionia.
Remember how good Unnerved Will of Ionia was? First of all,
Good.
very good. It
It's good.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, think about how often Noxian Fervor's quote unquote downside is actually good for you.
Okay. It happens.
It happens somewhat frequently,
it's
in the
pretty
decks
relevant.
that want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it eats your thing that's gonna get either like life-linked or,
All right. Now I have a second proposition. Remember how the big reason why Will of Ionia was really good at 4 mana was because it was just so versatile. It was a fast spell. You could just have them pick a thing up. This one loses almost all of its versatility because in order to get full value out of it, you're going to try and line up these weird blocks that like essentially are, gaining you like 2 or 3 life as your upside. That's going to cost you a couple mana a lot of the time, and then recall a thing. Like, it can be good, but I still want to be able to pick my units up and pick your units up in response to a pump spell or something that's, a glimpse beyond or whatever. And then we're not really going to get that full value.
What if we play this
anymore.
card with the bone and messengers and just get to bounce our 2/2s? More
All right,
2/2s that draw cards. Oh, yeah. And this next card, Greenglade Elder, getting buffed 2 power. That's a pretty big buff.
Pretty big.
I actually think that is
pretty relevant.
That's a
buff.
really
Yeah.
relevant buff
Anyway,
like that.
I think we should talk about these cards together.
what do you
This is
think
why I
about-
introduced Greenglade Elder,
Yeah.
so we didn't waste
Yeah.
time.
Okay. So basically, if somebody this is another one that if somebody shows me this card being really good, I could maybe buy it. But like Vengeance isn't really that good right now. There's not a lot of people casting expensive sorceries that are targeting things. Like the best thing I'm gonna want to be returning to people's hands are like Lee Sin, and it gets hit by Deny still. I don't know. It seems all right, but like at 4 mana, it still just seems like a
against Field
lot of
Rush.
mana for that effect.
I think that I just don't think so. Like, I mean, I think you're pretty okay with in the decks that need
Also-
an effect like this. I think you're okay with picking up some random creature from your board in exchange for picking up their best creature.
It does make it worse at returning their creature and then getting to open attack or whatever, because you also have to redeploy the creature that you picked up.
Absolutely. But I mean, the things in my mind, when I remember old Will of Ionia, some of the things that you would be doing with it are generally bouncing their like.
You also bounce
big-
your own creature fairly often, and now when you need to do that, this is huge upside.
You do get a big bonus for that.
Yeah, exactly. And also like the things you were bouncing with Will of Ionia back when it was being played were big, high cost single creatures that generated a lot of value, and you'd basically make your opponent skip their turn for like a lower mana. Like they'd play Hecarim, bounce it.
Yeah. Imagine
they'd
your
play
opponent
Sejuani,
infinite mind splittering
bounce
you,
it.
and you just like bouncing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's
That is
I
really
think
good.
the
you know?
game has changed, honestly. I think that this card against Wiggly Burblefish, I mean, it's really good with Wiggly Burblefish. But
it is good with Wiggly
but we're not playing Ionia Wiggly Burblefish deck, so let's discard that thought right now. And then like it's just, it's not good against Wiggly Burblefish, it's not good against Zap Sprayfin, it's not good against
Yeah, there's a lot less tap out for some big, huge dump.
there's
right
just
now.
a lot more like random 2/2s and 3/3s.
that is true. The game has changed a lot, and I think if this card, I think this card isn't bad. It could just be bad right now.
This card is insane against Invoke decks because they're already sacrificing tempo to try to put stuff into play. And I guess a good amount of it has Spell Shield. But if you get to bounce their like Immortal Fire or their like, I guess Golden Sisters, not really. But if you get to bounce their big creatures that you've like, especially if you remove Spell Shield or their A-Souls or whatever, you're tossing them huge amounts of tempo.
I guess my question is, why don't we just play Will of Ionia then? Like, if we want this effect that bad, like I think I'm just gonna put Will of Ionia in my deck before that, like almost every time. Like in order for me to be happy with the amount of mana I spent on it, the thing I'm redeploying would have to be 0 or 1 mana. Otherwise, I'm just like
Or like
losing
2 mana
tempo
with
on
an
Will of
ETB.
Ionia. Yeah, or like basically like I need to be getting some amount of value out of the return my own thing effect. And right now, I can't really see a deck that's going to do that. So I think in order for this card to see play, in my eyes, we're going to need something to be putting into play with it. And like, I need a reason to want to pick something up and put it into my own hand, basically, is where I think I land with
that
this one.
on that point is where we disagree, and
Yeah.
I think that's why I think it's good and you think it's bad.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Captain Farron makes 1 less decimate now.
I think it's totally fair, and I wanted this change, honestly.
Yeah, I think this is a big deal actually too. The fact that Captain Farron's an 8/8 and makes 12 power.
Think about it, for
or
8
12
mana,
damage.
it's 20 damage. It's an 8/8 trampler and 12 damage worth of burn is what it was before.
Yeah, it was just literally all lethal. The amount of times where I've been at like 16 and then like Captain Farron comes down and you're like, I'm dead. You're like, I have like a 4/4. I'm gonna take 8 and I'm just gonna die.
4/4, take 4, and then get 12.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty happy for this change. I think this one's a little while coming. Captain Farron's been a little bit too strong in my opinion.
I'm
for
glad
a
they
little
didn't change
while,
his statted size. That felt
Very
easy to
right.
deal with. Like, that is the easier part of the thing to deal with. So if he's getting too good, it's much easier to start putting vengeances in your deck versus like it's hard for many regions to answer the decimates
healing.
at all.
Yeah.
And even if you guidance touch yourself twice, like you used 4 mana, they used 5 of their free card that they created. Like, you didn't lose cards, but 2 more coming. Like,
Yeah, you still have to deal with it. Like the inevitability that Captain Farron offers
was
a little
too
high.
much. Yeah.
A little high.
Blade of the Exile got changed from cost 3 to cost 1, and then Blade Squire got changed from a 1/2 to a 2/1. Both of these aimed at buffing Riven because it didn't get directly buffed like Victor.
Yeah.
So this one, I think, can we stop for a moment and talk about the fact that Blade of the Exile cost 3 mana, but they decided that the flip side of Pack Your Bags was supposed to be 1 mana?
That's actually such a good point.
It's like, why is Blade of the Exile 3 mana to begin with? It should have been 1 mana from the start.
Cry,
for sure.
Beam, Improbulator.
I cannot begin to tell you how many games I have played against a Riven.
It's so many games.
Right, but
It's
where they
happened
have
so
made
often.
Blade of the Exile, and I've been like, oh God, they have 1 mana left. I'm dead now.
And then
because Blade of the Exile costs 1 mana, right, guys? And it just didn't.
This is a big deal. I think like this happens a lot for me. I've noticed
The whole
them being
package is
unable
4
to
mana instead of 6.
Yeah, I've noticed them being unable to play like, blade piece, blade on so many relevant turns where it would have been dead otherwise, or a single blade piece and then the blade.
Or
piece.
they
The
kill a
blade's
creature
3
that's
mana
like
or
so
whatever.
integral for you, you would have died on the next turn anyway.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. This deck doesn't have that big of a problem. Most Riven decks don't have a huge problem actually making the blade because they have ways to abuse Riven, or they have other random pieces. The
Reforging
the 2
a
mana
bunch isn't actually that
3/1.
hard.
Yeah, Weapon Hilt is a pretty reasonable card. Regardless, like.
We can
These
disagree on
blades-
that one.
These blades usually, all right, that's fair. These blades usually get made, and the fact that these Riven decks are basically all just going to get a 2 mana discount across the board on the turns where they need to be doing their powerful thing is a huge deal, I think.
And also, the fact that Blade Squire, one of the support cards that was previously unplayable, is now maybe decent, is good.
2/1 is much better than 1/2.
I will, especially on a 1-drop, because if you want to put it in an aggressive deck, like a 1/2 is so unimpressive, and a 2/1 is like actually doing the thing that you want.
Yeah, you want to play that on
twice
turn
as
one.
good at pressuring your opponent.
Yeah, you want to hit your opponent for 2 on turn 1 with this card
Or
if you have
trade
Riven
up.
in your deck, I think.
Yeah.
Like if this card like
those are the two
trades for
things
a
you
goat,
want.
like you're going to be stoked.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I
Trading for goat is so relevant.
I will note that both it and the other one, it's our 2/1s and 3/1s respectively, which makes like Withering Whale or Avalanche really good against this deck, or TF Red card.
It's worth noting that I actually think that it's kind of relevant because the 2/1 and the 3/1 are just innately kind of get swept up by sweepers, but Riven's actual plan is usually go big on 1 unit.
Oh,
so
it
there's
doesn't-
innately kind of a duality in these Riven decks where they try to like build a battleship on the 1 big unit, but most of their support cards are like kind of relevant power bodies that just have no health that like need to be dealt with in some way, which can line up poorly against the like Withering Whale into Vengeance draws, but also like makes people have usually more than one answer.
So you're
which is
telling
pretty
me
relevant.
as Draven, but instead of Draven, we have Victor, and instead of Ezreal, we have Riven?
Victor, Riven, and it's
All
tier
the other
3.
same cards. Yeah, sounds great.
I still think Riven's bad, but
Yeah, I think she's still probably
Okay,
bad.
cool.
But like,
Yeah.
I do think this is actually a much bigger deal.
She was
than-
getting played in a
than it
Demacia
was.
deck that like wanted to do some rallies and like played the Grand Plaza and stuff, and like that deck could be good now.
Oh,
Like,
I've
the Grand
seen
Plaza got worse. I'm like,
Riven get played, and every single time I'm like, oh God, she's gonna kill me, and then she just doesn't.
Yeah, I think that Riven has been unimpressive in the past, and this could give her the ability to be impressive in more scenarios,
and
which
the
I think
nerf
matters
of the
a
next
lot.
card, Hush, also helps Riven putting a Blade of the Exile on something.
This
That
one's
is
big.
true.
This
Hush
one's
went from
big.
2 to 3 mana. I think we all thought that this was needed. There's a pretty concerning trend in this game of players not liking the interaction and then the interaction getting costed more. And that has happened a lot. It happened with Will of Ionia.
Yeah.
It happened with Hush. It happened with...
It's happened with just like...
There are many cards. Like, the Rekindler used to be 6 mana. Ledros used to be 8 mana.
Cards have
And
gotten-
Rasa used to be 7 mana.
Yeah, cards get nerfed.
Like,
and this one's fine. I think this one needed a nerf. This one, 2 mana was just way too easy to win any combat for 2 mana.
it's so
with
much
Hush.
harder to have Pale Cascade plus Hush up than it is to have Hush when Hush is 3 mana. Like, 5 is way harder than 4.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Which is why Will of Ionia sucks now.
yeah, it's a big deal. I think that Hush is going to 3 mana.
And
I still
Pale
think
Cascade
it's
also got nerfed. It is now +1/+1 instead of +2/+1. I just
Yeah.
wanted to add this in because it's the last one and we're talking about Targon now. So
yeah.
it's
So
just
these two nerfs in particular, I think, are a big deal going hand in hand because Hush plus Pale Cascade was a big culprit for winning any combat you wanted to win out of Targon decks.
Yes,
It felt
absolutely.
like if you went into a combat with a Hush and a Pale Cascade as a Targon player, like you were basically guaranteed to win the combat. Like there was nothing that could really go that poorly for you. And now that's 5 mana. You get +1/+1 instead of +2/+1. The extra power, I think, is a pretty big deal, to be honest. It reduces the amount of free, like air quote unquote free that the card is, because it feels like in order to actually get the value out of your 2 mana, you need either the 1 power or the 1 toughness to be relevant. Otherwise, there's no point doing the thing you're doing, really. So, like...
Oh, yeah, before when it was just like cycle this for 2 damage, it was felt
Yeah,
like
and it
pretty
was
good.
totally fine. But now that it's cycle it for 1 damage, I'm not going to feel good about 2 mana for that. The fact that it only gives 1 toughness, it's like kind of, we've all been in the combats where we just like, play Pale Cascade to trade with this, whatever, I get my card back. Or like, play Pale Cascade to, just get the +1 power to make it live. But they don't happen that much,
Also, like trading Mentor of the Stones into 3 health units was big.
happens a lot.
Yeah, like-
the +2 is quite relevant. Like that. Let's not forget
It's
here.
also
there are
power
only-
on Lee Sin when he's double striking.
Yeah, there are only 3 stats total that the card was giving. So giving 1 less is like a 1/3 decrease in efficiency, basically. Like the card was incredibly efficient, and now it's like I don't really know that it's going to be worth 2 mana that often. Like it's already.
Oh, interesting. I think this card is still very good and it doesn't matter that much.
I still think it's good, and I still think we're going to play it, especially because all the decks that want to play it like have a relevant spell
Also,
count.
the card's just good with Aphelios. Like,
and
he
it's-
just wants Nightfall
It's good with
stuff
Aphelios.
and
It's
cheap
good with
spells.
Lee Sin. It's still going to be good in all the decks it's good in, I think. But I'm going to be less happy about spending 2 mana on this a lot because it's going to feel a lot like I'm spending 2 mana to just trade my thing instead of win this combat, I think. So
I think that it's going to be... I think that it depends entirely on the deck.
It's never going to trade that. It's never going to change that because the toughness didn't change. The difference between trading and eating is never.
There's going to be less attacks that you can make.
Oh, I see.
Is
I see what you
mostly
mean.
what
That's
I
true.
mean. Like it's gonna make less things be able to trade because they're just
Yeah,
going
they'll
to get
like,
eaten instead.
do they have Pal
Right.
Cascade? Hope they don't. They do is much less punishing. Like, much less is less punishing less
Attacking
often.
into it is a lot easier now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like exactly. Like you're going to be able to make better blocks more often against Pale Cascade because 2 power is way easier to way harder to block against than 1, like by a lot, I think. So I think this change will actually play out very relevantly. And back to the Hush thing, the fact that it's 3 mana means that you can't go into combat with only 4 mana to win these combats. Like
4 mana burst speed.
long story short,
infinity.
I think we're going to see Pale Cascade win a lot less combats than
Yeah, and you're
after this
not
patch
splashing
hits.
it in your Mistwraith's deck anymore.
Yeah. For example, there's definitely better cards that to just splash out of the.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think that
stacks,
was
so.
the biggest example I was going to come up with. Is basically it's because defensively it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
For the most part. Like
if you're responding to this,
if you're
Mystic
saving
Shot
things
with this card.
exactly. That's
Just
exactly
as
the
good as
example
it
I was
used to
going to. I was going to say if you're looking to use it to save things from Mystic Shot, you don't care really for the most part. Like it's obviously 2 is better than 1, and that's always going to be true. But like if you're using it defensively, you don't mind that much.
Yeah, it only matters when you used it to get extra power, which wasn't that often, or when you using it to trade up and you needed both toughness, which I think actually happened quite a bit. So
Yes, trading up was the bigger one for sure. But I personally definitely used it to save it from removal.
it was a big reason why it was so efficient, in my opinion. Was its ability
it was good
to
on
make
all
things
fronts.
trade
It was
up.
good at everything, and now it's less good at one of the things it was good at, and that's a good place to be.
Yeah, so that was all of the nerfs and buffs for every card that's already in the game. So a quick overview. So there were some pretty big hits here. So we've got Pale Cascade nerf,
A card in
Grand Plaza
every tier
nerf.
1 deck that isn't Fizz TF got changed.
Yeah, this was a pretty big nerf.
Yeah. Ezreal Draven had the Farron nerf.
Across the board.
Any deck that played Farron had the Farron nerf.
Grand Plaza got nerfed.
Yeah, Discard Aggro didn't get touched.
Yeah,
And it actually got a new toy that we're about to talk about.
Yes.
So maybe Discard Aggro is
I think it got
the new
straight
aggro
buffed.
deck, go-to aggro deck if Scout got hit with 2 nerfs and it didn't get hit with any.
yeah,
And
but
discard aggro
perhaps
was already strong.
Perhaps Withering Whale and those cards are going to make a return with the +1/+0 from
Then
Grand
maybe
Plaza.
Discard Aggro is bad again.
And plus the maybe
I
a
do
return
think that
of
part of the reason discard
aggro.
aggro like got better was because the Withering Whale was made largely unplayable by the existence of Grand Plaza. So we'll see where that goes.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's definitely a
when
very
the aggro
interesting
decks
dichotomy.
and it's deeper than actually Grand Plaza being better at it. It's that when the aggressive decks are Demacia, Withering Whale is less good against them because Withering Whale just isn't good against the region Demacia, just like in general.
Yeah.
Because they just have like
Rangers
chunkier units.
resolve.
Yeah, and when Withering Whale isn't good
They have
against
Rangers
aggro,
resolve.
it's just
They have
unplayable.
like just bigger units, so
Yeah.
it's just not actually going to kill them as often as it kills units in other regions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've got a whole lot of new cards to talk about now. So
Yeah, so just a quick refresher. These are Aphelios' patch cards. Aphelios is a 3-mana 3/3 with Nightfall that makes a gun in hand. And then whenever he sees you play your second spell a turn, you get whatever gun, that last gun primed, right?
yep. So long story short, he's a Nightfall payoff that is going to give you various good effects that you get to choose from.
Yeah.
So we thought that he would be good or at least interesting. You can hear all of our takes on the card. We talked about it in episode 7, I want to say. Maybe it was episode 8. It was a couple weeks ago.
Oh no,
I think it was like maybe it was 7. I don't even know how many
we've
episodes
done more
we have.
episodes of this than I remembered. So
Yeah, well, whatever. It was a little bit ago, but there's a lot more cards that came with him than I thought there would be. There's
there's
lot of
there's
region
13.
cards. Yeah,
if
there's
you
so
remember,
many.
this is like kind of classic. It's like a batch of things for him, and then 1 card for every other region, and then like an expansion like the Zoe one is like 3 cards for every other region because there's 3 new champions, and then their batches.
Yeah, it's kind of like big, small, big,
Interesting.
small.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it like that. That I guess this is about normal. I don't know. I
I
sort
didn't
of
necessarily expect 1 card for each of the other regions.
I didn't expect the 1 card for the
Yeah,
other
I wasn't
regions.
thinking
Those were the
about that
ones
either.
that surprised
but
me.
it makes sense. I like that they're doing that to like slowly expand the region pool.
Me too. Having a new card to play with in every region is sweet. So
Yeah.
let's dive into these bad boys and see if we got anything playable.
Yeah, so there's 13 new cards.
All right. Let's. I think
Outside
that's we're just
Aphelios
gonna.
and another Aphelios card that made a gun that was his champ spell.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
don't
It was
remember
just
what
a
that
2-mana
is.
burst spell, pick a gun.
I think so, yeah. I'm just
sure.
saying that like Aphelios did come with another card when you previewed him. It wasn't just Aphelios, but it wasn't a
Yeah, that
particularly
makes sense.
consequential one.
Okay, so I guess we'll just start at the top.
Yeah,
Do all the
fire away.
Targon ones first.
What?
Do all the Targon ones first. I
All
think.
the Targon ones first.
Okay, yeah,
that's a pretty reasonable
that's
idea.
not a bad way
Yeah.
to do that. Okay, so the first one from Targon is the Flight, 1 mana, 2/1 elusive that Nexus Strike draws a card and shuffles the Flight into the top 3 cards of your deck.
This card's weird.
Yeah.
So 1 mana 2/1 with elusive is basically always going to connect, or it's going to trade for something good.
Blocks Zoe or
Yeah. So like if it's
except unless it's a Port Arcana token. But
if it's trading, you're probably happy with what's going on here. If it's Nexus Striking, it starts to get interesting because the fact that it's 2/1, it replaces itself and then puts it back into your hand, which I think is supposed to be like a sweet Nightfall enabler.
it's back in
basically.
top
Top 3
of your
cards
deck.
of your deck.
Yeah, but and then when you
Yeah,
draw it,
yeah,
right,
it's
gonna
supposed.
put
It
back
is
in your
supposed
hand.
to be a Nightfall enabler. It's a cheap creature that you can play a bunch of times.
Is it good though? I think it could be.
I think if this card is good, there's another card that we're not thinking of that really like makes this card shine.
I
Like,
mean, I think it's Aphelios or that landmark that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, and the fact that Pale Cascade got nerfed immediately makes me less excited to play this card because like Pale Cascade is the card I immediately think of being like a great payoff. It's all cheap, like it's efficient, but like and it helps you push damage, which is clearly this card's
there needs
plan.
to be a reason. There needs to be a way for this to not be blanking my draws as often as it feels like it will be.
Well, it does immediately replace itself. So like
Yes,
No,
but
but
then
like-
it puts itself back in your deck on the
And
top
then you don't
want to
draw it
and
again.
then you don't
probably.
exactly.
Like I don't think I want to draw this
Exactly.
card the second card, and I definitely don't want to draw it the third or fourth
if it
time.
went to the bottom of my deck, way more in.
Oh, if it went to the bottom of my deck, I'd be stoked on this card.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be
I'm
really
sorry.
good.
What are you talking about? You just want like 1 mana deal to their face draw card?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of decks would absolutely want that for sure. It would enable Nightfall.
Yeah.
It's a good aggressive
blockable.
creature.
It's why
blocks
I'm
Zoe in a meta where Zoe is so prevalent. Like I don't know, maybe.
That's fair.
It seems all right. I mean, every time it hits,
It also just like blocks Burblefish.
yeah, it essentially
Block
like
Zap Sprayfin.
it essentially puts the top card of your deck on a lease. Essentially, like you're gonna have to pay it back eventually when you draw this card off the top. I don't know. I'll be surprised to see it see play, but I do think it's pretty sweet. And I'd like to see if somebody does something cool with it. So
Yeah, same. The next one from Targon is the Sky Shadows. 2 mana, 3/1. When I'm summoned, refill 2 mana if you behold a Nightfall card.
Oh, I didn't grok that all of these cards refill mana, not
yeah,
spell mana.
not spell mana.
Weird.
2 regular mana, which is way
That card is
better.
great.
Yeah, the card.
Yeah, I thought this card was bad, and just knowing that, I'm like, oh, this card is good because you can just like, if you just have Diana in your hand on turn 2, you can play 3/1 that is 0 mana Diana.
it's 0 mana. It's a 0 mana 3/1. This card's great.
Yeah.
This card's great.
I thought this card was bad. I would just like to say, I looked at this card, was like, this is not impressive, but I did not understand that it refilled real mana.
Because like we've seen time and time again, like so as all of us as Magic players have like I've the concept of card advantage so like drilled into us so hard and being so important that like this card sucks because it cost a card. It's like that matters so much less
Runeterra.
in Runeterra than it does in Magic. Like
Too, yeah.
cards can be card inefficient and be good.
Absolutely. Especially if you're playing it in decks that are going to be creating other cards like the Celestial Unit type thing. I'm pretty excited to play with this card. Like,
Yeah, totally.
these aggressive Nightfall decks are definitely getting a lot of additions that are going to make their draws a lot more explosive, I think. I'm very hopeful that they line up in such a way that it works out sweet. Because I want to try it.
The next card for Targon is Alex previously said when we were talking before the episode, what did you say? The weirdest card you've ever seen printed?
This
So
is the
weird.
weirdest card
in
that's
any
the
card game or this card game?
I'm okay. Certainly not in any card game. I've played a lot of Hearthstone, but
Yeah,
this
okay,
is
cool.
this is the weirdest card in this card game. I think
It's
for
funny
sure.
that there are 3 different cards that we've thought of.
well,
We were talking about this whole time, but you should say it.
Yeah, I should say what the card is before we go further.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's 2 mana burst called Starbone. If you behold the messenger, the star doggo, grant celestial allies everywhere +1/+1.
Someone at Riot saw the one of the hosts of the Twin Sons follows the Twin Sons podcast Twitter, who's been talking for the past like week about how they're about to get to Masters with their like messenger sigil like dog combo
account,
deck.
yeah.
And someone was like, guys, can we just jam this into the patch real quick? And they're
yeah,
like, sure.
we need dogs. So this card is so weird for so many reasons. Okay, so for starters, it keys off of the messenger, which you can't just put in your deck. It's a celestial card. So you need to have a specific celestial card in order for this card to do anything, right? And then the effect that it has is grant all celestial allies +1/+1. Not like so it's a celestial payoff, but it requires you to have gotten specifically the messenger, the 2 mana 2/2 that draws a card. And then it's a payoff, but it's not even that big of a payoff. It's only +1/+1. I mean, how many like random celestial cards do people really put into play every game? It's not that many. And the fact that you have to find a copy of the messenger in the first place. This card is just weird on all fronts. And on top of that, I think it's just really bad. So
yeah.
I think it is probably bad, but it's one of those cards that like
This card is
it's weird. It's just weird.
I will eat my words if this card is playable.
Oh,
this
yeah,
card
first
is
time.
so bad.
it's so bad. It's awful.
I also think it's really
like
bad.
the thing that when you
It's
set
just
up
horribly
a
bad,
Spacey
yeah.
Sketcher, a hit with Zoe, or a trigger from our next card, which are all invoke Celestial with 3 or less, get a messenger to play. Play this, invoke a couple more times, use a messenger sigil, make your entire deck messengers, pay 2 mana for a bunch of 3/3s or 4/4s that draw cards. You still aren't even that close to winning the game.
yeah, what the hell
Your
did your
board just
opponent
fills up.
Yeah, what did your opponent do in that
But
much
also your
time?
board
Like,
just fills up. So
yeah,
just like you paying mana to just like make your whole board 3/3s is like not gonna win you the game that often.
yeah, how much like let's compare that
does level
card
your
to like
TF.
to like
Boom.
Battlesmith, which is just a 2 mana 2/2. So for the same price, you get a 2/2 and it just gives all of your good things +1/+1.
Actually, I now that I think about it, now that Noah made the example of board filling up, I just realized this reminds me of this really, really bad, janky deck that I played a long time ago, which was its game plan was oh god, what's the card? The 3-mana 2/3 that makes a thing that died this game.
Scribe of Sorrows. It took me a while to decide if you were like talking about Magic or not.
Oh, sorry. Scribe of Sorrows. Yeah.
Yes.
So the deck's plan was to not play a creature until you played a Scribe of Sorrows, and then it died, and then you played another Scribe of Sorrows. So the only creature that got played was Scribe of Sorrows. So you just play infinite Scribes of Sorrows, and you just get infinite 2/3s. And as it turned out, it was really bad.
Shocked that wasn't. Okay, remember when we talked about how he's not a good deck?
I remember
in this game. He's like,
he was sitting in his house. My 2/3s will blot out the sun. Just like jamming them all in over and over again.
It's because I built this because I lost to it once
in Expedition.
No,
This is the kind of crap that you do in Expedition, right? Like it's like
it was on
it
ladder.
just comes together.
It was on ladder, and it was against. I was
Bronze
playing as some like grindy control deck, and I couldn't beat it because they just kept making 2/3s, and I was like, well, I can't ruination all of these.
This is like the same person came up with this deck that came up with the oh my god, like what if we just make the card Draven say player strike draw a card, but instead,
what if we just make
so
Scribe
much
of
worse.
Sorrows say make infinite 2/3s? It's perfect.
Yeah, so I think Starbone is
infinite
bad.
2/3s. I'm listening. You have to pay 3 manas for each of them. Never mind.
Oh, okay. So let's see. What's the next card for Targon? Next card for Targon is the Fangs. 4 mana, 3/2 lifesteal. Play, invoke a celestial card that costs 3 or less. So notably, this makes the bone
Okay, I have a very important question.
more. Okay,
Bone more efficient. Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so we know what the eyes of the dragon are. We know what the claws of the dragon are. We know that Lee Sin is the fist of the dragon. And now we also have the wings, the fangs, and the skies. So, like...
Did you not go to Dragon Sex Ed?
Yeah, what combination of these... Like, at what point are we going to get the full dragon? Like, how does this Exodia work?
I think it's the full dragon, not Aurelian's soul.
Did you tee up that joke before we?
No, definitely not.
Okay,
I did not tee
that makes it a
us.
lot less weird. I think.
But, like, I saw a meme the other day on, like, the... like LOR like shit posting subreddit, and it was like all of the different like eyes and claws of the dragon like trying to make a dragon
jam
but
together.
now we have the wings and the fangs. Like,
Can we make a
why
dragon?
are there this many body parts? And that's what I just don't get.
I don't know. I mean, I get.
Okay, this card's good though. So like,
Oh, yeah, the card's good.
I think this card is bad.
This card,
so I'm excited.
You think
to
this
talk
card
about
is
it.
You think this card's bad? Why?
Interesting.
It's a 4-drop with Nightfall, which is like really hard to turn on.
It doesn't have
doesn't
nightfall.
have
It just says
nightfall.
play.
I thought it said Nightfall, dude.
No.
Yeah,
it just does
this
the
card's
thing.
just too good. That's what I thought the first time. I read it the first time, thought that card's bad, and then read it the second time, and I was like, oh, I just assumed it was worse than it is because this is so much more wildly efficient than they normally make it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this card's great.
Yeah, I
it's
think
a
this card's
4-mana
great too.
3/2 with lifelink that's going to draw me a card, and it's going to be a
trade
good card.
up,
Absolutely.
Probably. It's going to gain you 3 life.
Yeah, I
it's
think
going to
that-
make a good card.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in.
okay.
The
I'm
card,
just, like, into this
the
card.
card will be good.
Yeah, it doesn't. It has lifesteal forever. Like it just gets to keep it if it gets the block. Trade with anything. Like this card's great. If it's going to be good against aggro. Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm sold.
Same. I'm in. Okay, so the next card is the landmark for Targon.
Oh,
the
this
other
one's
landmark
sick.
for Targon, the rare one instead of the epic one. 4 mana, the Veiled Temple. Each round, the first time you play 2 other cards, refill 2 mana and grant your strongest ally +1/+1.
I would just like to say this is the third Targon landmark because Star Spring.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're right.
Targon is like
Yeah,
kind
weird.
of that cares about landmarks region a little bit weirdly, but
Yeah,
anyway.
because it also has the paths card.
Yeah,
that's
Divergent
for-
Paths.
Divergent paths.
Yeah, like the other ones all have removal, but it can actually tutor them. It's like it's a little part of Targon's region identity is that we have a lot of
neat. Okay.
fun facts.
So this one's a little weird. So it basically says when you trigger Nightfall, or when you would trigger Nightfall, you get 2 mana and your strongest ally gets +1/+1. This card's really cool, but I don't think it's good.
It does let you turn spell mana into real mana.
It does, yeah. It
which
is.
Wait, it refills the mana. So if you use spell mana, is it going to refill spell mana?
No, it's going to refill mana, starting with...
What if you don't have any empty mana crystals?
I don't know the answer to your question, but I could easily see it giving you spell mana or just
Right,
not
I have
giving
5
you
mana
at
and
all.
3 spell mana. I spend 2 spell mana. It tries to refill mana, but I don't have empty mana.
I think it will... Oh, that's a really good question, and I don't know. I think it'll not give you mana, but I think that case is so unbelievably niche that
Because
it
you
will
have
never
to play
matter.
2 spells. So you have to play
Yeah.
2 things that use
You'd
up.
have to double warning shot with full mana.
Yeah, okay.
Like, that's not that feasible.
Yeah, so
No, but I'm saying, like, if you spend spell mana, does it give you spell mana?
I think the answer is no,
Okay.
if your mana is full.
Interesting. No, I think it
regardless,
has to. But
regardless, I don't think we know, so we'll have to see. But I mean, this card isn't probably isn't good regardless, right? Like, I think that it's really cool, and I like in my head, I wonder even if after you get the 3rd activation out of this card, if it was good.
Yeah, then it is a net up 2 mana, but you had to spend 4 mana like up front.
Yeah.
And 3 stats. Like it
Plus
just
3/+3 in stats.
It just seems like there's better ways to get stats.
Yeah, and the problem is with Nightfall, like it never really feels like you're struggling with after you play the Nightfall card, because the Nightfall card's the payoff. Like I want the mana to play the Nightfall card, not after I've already played my Nightfall card, right?
Yeah.
Because it gives it to me after I've played my 2nd spell. So this card helps you to play your 3rd spell in a round, right? And if it can consistently
also,
do
like-
that, it could be powerful enough. But I mean, how many rounds can you really play 3 cards a turn before you just end up out of cards, and then this is never going to
I will say that this card does up your max mana to 15, kind of. Because on turns where other people would only ever be able to spend 10 mana, you can spend 12. And that is actually reasonably important. Like, this breaks that fundamental rule of the game that you cap out at 13 mana. Like, with a warning shot, really weird example, you can play Ledros and pack your bags. And if you play
Yeah,
Ledros, warning shot, pack your bags. Like, you can do that. Like, you know, that's probably not great, but it does cheat on and I didn't realize this until I was just saying it, on a very fundamental aspect of the game.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to come up, though, probably.
And I think this card...
That's because you don't do enough limit testing on this.
I think this card might actually be good.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm... So, remember when we like tried to evaluate the Grand Plaza? We were like hilariously wrong about it.
We
right?
were hilariously wrong.
Like
yeah.
so wrong about it.
Yeah.
And I think we would have been very easily right about it if we had just thought to ourselves, okay, what's the play pattern with this card? Like we were looking at it, we were trying to be like, well, what's the...
You both actually thought it was good, and I said, what's the play pattern? And we all thought it was bad. It's how I remember that happening.
Oh, okay, maybe that did happen.
I remember being on the fence and being convinced it
Sure,
was bad,
whatever
but
happened.
regardless.
We have the recording.
Yeah, we
can
check the
listen to
tapes.
it. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I think if we had just been like, wait a second, what happens when Scouts plays this? Like, it would have been so easy. Like, oh, wait, Grand Navigator suddenly a 3/5
Yeah,
and
the
a
Navigator.
2/3 with Scout and Challenger. Like, we would have instantly been like, this is amazing. Like, we would have figured it out. And
Okay, but like, what's the broken thing that this one is doing?
I think okay, so I don't know.
Pumping out-
I don't know specifically. I can't name specific cards, but I think there's like on turns like 5, 6, and 7, it can potentially do some like really powerful things with just going way higher, like above curve.
Yeah, I
normally
agree.
above curve.
Yeah, you really this card is absolutely going to let you do some stupid things on turn 5, 6, and 7 some amount of the time. The problem I have with the card is that, like, is it going to do those things consistently enough for it to be worth
And
existing?
are those things
basically?
going to matter?
Yeah,
Like,
essentially. Like, are those
A
things
lot of
actually going to
times
be good?
you can have a turn where you're like, that turn was insane. But that doesn't mean you win the game. You just had a good turn. And like, if they're just doing that same thing a turn later, like, if you're not going to leverage that turn into winning the game, it didn't matter.
Yeah, this,
So okay,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to think of a good example. And I think the first thing I'm thinking of is okay. It's like, let's say turn 4 you play this card, right? You can suddenly go card. Well, you can go like Petal, Crescent Guardian, gain 2 mana, play like what is that? So that's a 2.
So let's say you
could-
have 5 spell mana. So you
Well, I don't.
You have 5 regular mana and 2 spell mana after you've played Petal.
Let's worst case scenario this. Let's say no spell mana. Let's say you pay 1 real mana for the Petal just to get a Crescent Guardian that's with Nightfall.
Yeah, so now we play 2 mana.
So now we just played a 3 mana for.
Now we have
And now
5-3. And now
we end up with 4 mana.
and we can just play another Crescent Guardian. Like that's like a pretty like.
And that's pretty good. And
like
that's
you play an extra Crescent Guardian and one of them's a 6/4.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's. And then like.
I mean, and this card is obviously for Aphelios, who's like flip side wants you to play gun
Just
into
keep
gun into gun
churning.
into gun.
I think this is the kind of card that someone way better at deck building than we are is going to find a way to break, and it's going to be awesome. And I think this card's going to be good.
All right.
Hot take.
I hope so.
Maybe
I-
hot take. Maybe
so.
this is maybe
I
someone out there is
resist
like,
the
you guys are
chains.
idiots. This is obviously good.
Well, I mean, it's a hot take against us because I think it's obviously bad. So
I resist the chains of your expectation of me being a bad deck builder, and I'm gonna go 0-10 in ranked in Masters.
yeah, and just
with Bruce
tank it.
centered on this card. So bring it on.
All right, what's our next one on the docket
Sounds
here,
fun.
Guillaume?
Is there another one for Tar? There is. Okay, so last one for Targon.
Wonderful.
5 mana, the Cloven Way. 5 mana, 5/4, Overwhelm. With Nightfall, stun an enemy. If it's a follower, stun it again at the next round start.
This is the one that has Nightfall. I knew one of them had
right.
one of the expensive ones.
This card I think is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 5 mana 5/4 with Overwhelm. It's hard to trigger
4
Nightfall.
damage with Yasuo.
It's hard to trigger Nightfall on 5 drops. And it's like it's gonna stun a thing probably twice. I don't know that it's that good.
Okay, so I've been at work all day, so I haven't really read it mostly any of these. I just gave them a cursory glance at lunch today. This is like the exact kind of card that I want to be playing, to abuse this landmark.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
Okay.
Because it's a mid-cost creature that
It's
you
a
have trouble
mid-cost
triggering
creature
Nightfall
that
for.
you don't generally want to spend your whole turn doing, but suddenly it's not your whole turn, right?
Sure.
Like let's say you've one spell mana, it's a Petal. It
doesn't really matter what the things around it are.
it's
The
like
fact
once-
that this isn't your whole turn is actually a much bigger deal.
Yeah,
because
so, like-
normally triggering Nightfall on this card and this card would absolutely be your whole turn.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll give you 2 mana back, so maybe you can do a third thing.
Yeah, so
Maybe.
if you have 1 spell mana, you have 5 mana, you go thing this, you get 2 mana back. I was thinking maybe you get
thing. Yeah.
I was thinking maybe you get like this Crescent Guardian go and but if you think about playing both those cards at the same time on turn 5, that's
quite a bit of power.
I don't know.
You know, it's
kind of
a
a
lot of
keyword?
stats.
I'm sorry.
I just don't know if
Overwhelm.
it's good.
It just has Overwhelm.
And it's a 5/4?
It's a
a
5/4
5/4
for 5.
This card's a little bigger than I thought it was. I thought
remember,
it
it also stuns something.
Yeah, I
it
think
removes
it's
their
just-
best blocker.
I think it's just a little bit too. I just don't want to.
You can also have some pretty disgusting nocturne turns with
Yeah.
the landmark.
I think
sure.
I think it stunning a thing makes this card so much more
The stun is very
potentially
relevant.
playable than it
Yeah.
would normally be.
because on turn 7 it's usually going to have like a hard time attacking or whatever turn it needs to be for it to have Nightfall consistently, right? So like it's usually going to have trouble attacking if it wouldn't stun
Even turn
something.
5, but it's
So,
your whole turn with this plus a spell that turned it on.
for sure.
But I think stun is just such an unbelievably powerful keyword tempo wise.
It plays so much better than you'd think, for sure.
Yeah, because from a tempo perspective, stun in the right context, if you're playing it correctly, stun says destroy target creature.
Especially this stun too.
Exactly.
It can be like stun it so it doesn't attack me this turn, and then I'm going to kill them next turn when it also can't block.
Add that to the fact that overwhelm as a keyword is so much better in this game than in like Magic, where you can stack block. You can't stack block in this game.
It's another
maybe this
really,
1-1.
It's another really good like aggressive Nightfall card.
Yeah.
So if
maybe
if
the
these
landmark-
aggressive Nightfall decks end up being good, then this could be a reason they are.
Maybe the landmark works well enough with Moonlight Affliction. Like I remember that card because I just started playing it in this Invoke deck. But like that is 3 mana or 5 mana to remove 2 blockers with Nightfall, and like
That's suddenly a lot less debilitating when you get 2 of the mana back.
yeah,
For
right?
sure.
And so like you can just set up these alpha strikes with this card stunning stuff and Moonlight Affliction
And then just hit them with all your
And suddenly all of your
various beaters.
really kind of bad 2-1s and 3-1 or
just getting into their
2-2s
full
are
power for damage,
exactly
yeah.
your messenger is suddenly not a bad attacker,
yeah. Yeah.
which is surprising, but Yeah.
As long as he's a 3/3 at least. All my messengers are 3/3s. I keep that bone on me.
All right, Alex. Okay, so
We might have to cut that.
okay, so we're just gonna move past that. That was the last Targon
Wonderful.
card.
Yeah, let's get into
So
the
Can
other
we just
regions.
talk real quick about? I guess we should save this for after all the cards.
Yeah,
But I
let's
want
just
to
go
talk
through a
about
couple of
where
cards.
Targon sits now
We got
as the
Okay,
old
sure.
king, like through nerfs and new cards.
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
get
we can
there.
get to that. Okay, so this card is, I think, the one I was most excited for upon my like cursory glance earlier today. 1 mana. It's called Stress Testing. 1 mana burst. Remove fleeting from all cards in hand. More relevant, when I'm discarded, draw 1 fleeting.
Yeah. This is the card that is emblematic of what it's like to prepare for the seasonal. Just stress testing.
Yeah, a lot. And like, I think this card's so gross for discard aggro.
It
and
makes
I think
Rummage
it's really
actually
good.
put you up cards instead of
Exactly.
like put you down cards and make you a 1/1. It is now you're playing the Rummage and the 2 other cards. One of them is this and drawing 3 cards.
Yeah. It's good in
guess it
Burrowfish.
makes it
It's good
even
in
instead of
discard
down a
aggro.
card.
Like, instead of like technically not discarding a card because it's still like you're still just making a 1/1 with like Jury Rig or a 0/2 with Flame Chopper, you're actually getting a real card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has fleeting, so
But if you
But
build your
Rummage
deck
costs
right,
1
that
mana.
doesn't usually cost. That doesn't usually matter that much.
yeah,
Like, this is really
it's
good
going to
with
be a little
Draven
bit
Axes.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's going to be
exactly.
a little bit more awkward than in my head, at least, than you guys made it sound out to be. But this card's very good, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to play with this card in my discard decks.
Do we think we're putting it in like Draven Ezreal?
Yes.
Maybe one.
I think yes.
You
I
can
think I'd
spend
be
1
pretty
mana
happy
to keep
put
your
one or
Mystic
two.
Shot.
I think it's
do it.
much more relevant to for Burblefish decks because all of a sudden your turns where you go like pick a card, or probably not 2, but there are
Those could happen,
I've cast 2 pick cards at once many times.
and I'd be way more willing to do it if I had this card in my deck.
yeah, exactly.
Because
Because all of a sudden you're like
drawing 7 cards, and if you just hit this card, you can just keep them all.
You can just
Yeah.
keep your hand. Yeah, pretty good.
yeah, exactly.
Sick. All right.
Um,
I hope that card is fun.
same.
It seems like it's going to be.
And
at
you can
least
make it off
really
Coral
sweet.
Creatures and Burblefish, which is super important.
yes,
very good,
That
yeah.
is very very.
Though it
important.
is, I guess, technically just a literal blank card in and of itself. But you know, at least that deck has plenty of ways to deal with blank pieces. Blank
This card
pieces
is
of paper. so-
a much better literal blank card than
Then jettison.
yes,
Yeah, very
because
true.
it gets discarded.
Yeah,
better.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. All right, what's next?
So the next card is Troll Gifts. 2 mana burst. Freljord. Oh, so the last card was Piltover and Zon, by the way. This card's Freljord. Troll Gifts, 2 mana burst. Grant an ally regeneration. If they already have regeneration, grant them +2/+2 instead.
Which is permanent. You got to remember when buffs in this game are permanent because I
And-
don't notice
Yep.
Is
so
this card
often.
good?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, I that's where I'm leaning too.
I'm
But
gonna
I-
agree. A lot of people are talking about how broken it is, and people really like to
Talk about how broken
broken like
things are.
random combat tricks are a lot of the time.
Yeah, I
and
don't
they're
think
just never
this.
that good.
I
Like,
don't think.
First
this
of all,
card's
think
broken.
of how often. Think of how many creatures in the game.
oh, wait a minute.
have
Pale Cascade
regeneration.
doesn't trade with Sharpsight anymore. Yikes. Anyway,
Wow, yeah, that is hugely
yeah, that
relevant.
really
That is a
matters.
big deal. Yeah,
That is a very big deal. Anyway,
So yeah, I don't want to play this card.
I'm
I don't
pretty
think,
sure I-
really.
I think the number of cards in the game that have regeneration just have it is sub 10.
It's not
Right.
very many. Yeah, I think it's probably right. Like it's only in Freljord,
Some
right?
trolls.
It's only the trolls.
Trundle, Garen, flipped Vladimir,
Oh, and Garen,
Braum, the Troll Ravager, the Augur Troll, the 7/7 Challenger
Scar
Troll.
Maiden Reaver.
Yeah, that one.
That's it, right?
I think there's like 2 more.
Braum.
Maybe.
I
You
said
got Braum.
Oh.
Regardless, it
Braum
doesn't
is
really
actually
matter.
pretty good
Is
for
it,
this
like,
card.
Braum is very good with this card. That is true. And maybe
what units don't have regeneration that like would really want them though is what I'm wondering. in this
Fiora.
deck. Like Fiora is the one that stands
Shen.
out to me. It's Fiora, and I think that if
Shen
you're
is-
going to play this card, it's probably going to be
You're
in
having to
that
play Shen
Fiora
in a
Zoe
Freljord
deck.
deck to make that happen. One.
that's
And
true.
2, like I don't think it matters that much.
Yeah, like I think the only reason this card's going to see play is if you happen to put it in the Fiora Zoe deck.
Challenger. It's also pretty good on Ember Maiden.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like another way to make your Ember Maiden not like
Just go
die.
at, just go at every turn.
Die, yeah.
I mean, the Scargrounds already really does that, and that's like a way better enabler for what that's trying to do than
totally true.
than this card is.
Maybe this will give Scargrounds decks a push.
Tom Kench is pretty good with this card.
Tom Kench is quite
Actually,
good with this
yeah,
one.
Tom
That
Kench
one
is
good.
quite good.
But
with
then
this
you're
card.
playing Bilgewater Freljord and not playing Soraka. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, that
so there's
doesn't,
no way
like-
it's better
Or
than
Starspring.
Soraka.
Never mind. Off it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. You
Off
could
this
play... Okay, wait.
You could play
Okay.
not Tom Kench
Deck
and
building
just
time.
go.
No, Tom Kench. And then you play... You play the Scar Grounds and like Lounging Lizard and those other units that damage themselves when you play them, which are better with Scar Grounds in play.
Noble and his lounging lizard.
Okay. And then you have the regenerate thing too, and Tom Kench. And so you're playing like Star Grounds, Tom Kench, and the other Scar Groundsy cards.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
All
So
right.
in case you're wondering,
If you ever want to lose some LP,
yeah, in case
me a message and
maybe
I'll send you a list.
somebody wants to refine that. We're looking for 28 other lost cards who need a home.
this card's really good with Tom Raka. Not Tom Raka, Tom Kench.
It is good with them.
Golden Crush Bot would like a word with you.
Golden Crushbot, another absolute troll regeneration all-star.
Scaled Snapper.
Oh, hello.
Strictly better Golden Crush Bot.
I'm looking at
usually.
the scaled snapper.
I think it's so cool that it's so weird that they just had that card, those two cards together in the game from the beginning, just like a card and a strictly better card in a different region.
A little weird.
Yeah, but you can get Scaled Snapper as a 2/2 off of Tri-Beam, so it's worse.
There you go. That matters. All right.
It does matter. Anyway,
Moving on.
next card, Gluttony. Shadow Isles. Sorry, it took me a second to just like
To recognize the symbol.
No, just to like the words to enter my head. 3 mana, fast. Kill an ally with Last Breath to summon a follower from your deck that costs 1 more. And the interaction that was most notable that I've seen people talking about was this kills your Anivia and makes a Rekindler.
Yeah, I think that's the only interaction that's ever going to be relevant.
Probably not
You
actually.
can't kill
I mean,
Ledros into anything cool.
Maybe
which
not
is
ever,
unfortunate.
but
What
this card
can-
seems
so
a
what
little
can
bit too
cur-
niche to be able to
what can Cursed
consistently
Abomination
have
make?
it good.
She Who Wanders has regeneration. Fun fact.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my god!
You're right.
We really just Noble's just been over there in the corner with his head in his hand, like, God, there has to
Well,
be.
no, I
another
thought
one.
about it
For
because
the
I was
last 2
thinking, like,
minutes.
what's the 10 drops you get off of this card and Commander Ledros?
Sure.
And I was like, She Who Wanders.
Ooh.
But it's not good because you don't need whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential with this card. I
It
don't.
does have to be a Last Breath follow.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
It
to
doesn't
see
say
somebody.
Last Breath unit.
I'm gonna have to make somebody.
Someone
This is
a
another
follower.
one. Somebody needs to show me that this card is broken before I'm gonna
But
play.
kill
it.
a Last Breath unit.
Kill an ally with Last Breath to make a
with Last
follower. So you can kill your Anivia to make your Rekindler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this could be killing your Warden, whatever, the guy that Thresh kills in this art.
Warden's Prey.
Warden's Prey.
Also, random cool thing. There's lots of cool
That's so
random
bad,
chain
though.
cards in Legends of Runeterra that either tell a story or are like in each other's arts. That is just
Oh
like,
yeah,
cool. To
super cool. Someone
look
made
at
a
the full arts. It's
post
great.
about that. Yeah, look at the full arts. They are great.
All right, this card, I'm off it until somebody proves it to me.
I'm
That's
not.
where I'm at.
I have no opinion on this card because there's just so many factors to consider that I just can't even
Yeah.
begin to think about
I would
right
like
now.
to clarify that I think that if this card didn't say Last Breath follower, it would be insanely
It would be
powerful.
so good, yeah.
Because you could just respond to like any removal spell with just like upgrade my creature.
Yes.
And since you can't do that, and a lot of the Last Breath units are small and not that good, like I do not want to cast this card on Curse Keeper. Like that does
no
not sound like
thanks.
fun to me. It doesn't sound like it's a good thing to be doing. Like
Yeah,
just glimpse it. Just glimpse it.
This card, yeah. These cards must be used on a Last Breath follower already existed, and it's called Ravenous Butcher, and it's probably better than whatever you're getting anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's 0 mana instead of 3. So
Yeah, that's probably true. Anyway, next card. Flurry of Fists, Ionia, 3 mana, burst. Just realized, literally haven't read this card yet at all.
it's quite
I
a
just
weird one.
missed
Gives a
it.
unit +1/+0 and quick attack permanently, and then gives it double attack if it already had quick attack. Someone said that they wanted to put this card in their Shen Fiora deck, and I was like, do we?
Wait,
maybe.
What,
I
what
mean-
in that deck has quick attack?
No, they just want to give Fiora.
You just want to give Fiora a
Oh.
quick attack, I think. Which
Exactly.
I think it's much more feasible in your Lucian deck.
But he also gets double attack when
Yeah,
you do
but
the
Senna,
thing.
give it to Senna.
She also gets double attack when you do the thing.
That's true. Okay, you're right. Yeah, no, that's,
Horns of the Dragon. Oh wait, no, that's not the one.
I
you
think
care
that
about.
I think that this card is fine.
The second one is 6 mana double attack.
It's
plus
really
2
good on
plus 0.
Zed.
That's
okay.
fair.
Zed. Yeah,
It's
there we
really
go.
sweet on Zed.
That is sweet.
It just flips him too.
Yeah, it just
flips him
immediately
instantly,
flips
yeah.
him, and like, yeah, it's really
and
cool.
then when he's flipped, his tokens get double attack.
Yeah, I think there is
Actually,
officially
that literally doesn't matter because they die in the first hit because
Yeah.
they're ephemeral.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, never mind.
Oh well, but maybe this card will be cool on Zed, and that I don't know. That's really the only application.
Another
I can
one of
see
these
for it.
cards where
somebody's going to lose some games to it in Expedition for sure.
Yeah, another one of these cards where I'm like, I need to think more than I want to really evaluate this card.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see it in Constructed.
Yeah,
It's
anyway.
a little too expensive.
Next card is for Bilgewater called Powder Pandemonium. 4 mana, slow spell. Summon a Powder Monkey and give a random enemy vulnerable this round for each time you've activated Plunder. I haven't read this card yet either.
Oh, this makes this so much
For
more
each time
fun.
you've activated Plunder this game, by the way.
That's a lot of vulnerable creatures.
Which is, by the way, you're going to be hitting their whole board with this around the time that you would have leveled up Gangplank. Exactly the time that you would
Yeah,
have
so
leveled
it's
up
probably like
Gangplank
4 or
Sephiroth.
5.
Yeah.
For 4 mana by the time you're casting it on later turns, giving their board vulnerable.
You only get one Powder Monkey, though.
Yeah.
That part doesn't scale.
I mean, I'm very glad you don't get more than one Powder Monkey, honestly, because
Wait.
I mean, actually, no, that's
Wait,
not.
wait, wait.
That's
Do
strictly.
you not get more than one Powder Monkey? I thought you got a Powder Monkey for each and got vulnerable for each. Otherwise, this card would be
Summon
awful.
Powder Monkey and give. Maybe it does work that way.
Yeah, because I saw a thing on Twitter that like had like Jagged Taskmaster next to this thing would give all 1-drop allies +1/+0 everywhere. Like that seems pretty cool.
Professor Von Yip is out, and you just
I'm
go.
getting a little bit of like Unleash the Hounds vibe from it. A little bit, just
Oh, wow.
random sorcery
Unleash the
that
Hounds. Yeah,
that
that card.
randomly fills your board with a bunch of things that all deal damage. Like the fact that they all die and deal 1 damage to the enemy nexus is pretty relevant. Like you can burn somebody out from like 6 with
Power
that, and
Monkey
that's if
Tribal.
they,
So-
that's if they have a whole board that they can block with. It's
Yeah.
going to be much higher if it's not.
Yeah. So if this does make a Powder Monkey for each time you've activated Plunder, this card's like potentially really good.
I think it's potentially really good.
Yeah, this is just 4 mana kill you. Like,
I'm quite excited
right.
to play this card.
I'll admit,
yeah.
when I said card is bad, it would be much better if, and then you told me that if is actually true.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm in on it.
Yeah, I think that this card's probably pretty good, and it's definitely going to be a very aggressive deck that's going to play it. And that like Jagged Taskmaster synergy seems pretty sick.
We could play Elise,
Might be good.
Jagged Taskmaster, and Jagged Taskmaster works on spiders is the reason that I want to play it with Elise.
That would be cool too.
Neat fun fact.
Lots of good
Random-
options
random
here.
fact.
I'm excited to play against that card. I feel like I'm going to die to that card a lot. It
In
feels like one of
Expedition
those cards.
especially.
Oh yeah, feels like one of those cards.
I
that
think
you're
there's
just
going to be an
die to.
Expedition All-Star.
Yeah, but you have to have like, I guess usually
You don't have to
something
activate
like
Plunder
3.
that many times. If you
Well,
activate
no,
Plunder,
what I was saying is that like you have to have not a full board, but that's not really true because like even if you get 2 Powder Monkeys, it's pretty good.
It's
Yeah.
going to be kind of like the Harrowing, where you're just going to like play it as a late game thing, and it's it's basically going to refill your whole board, and you're basically going to try and kill your opponent on that turn, right? Like all your Powder Monkeys are going to die. They're all going to do 1 damage when they die. That's pretty relevant. That's just going to burn them out. Most people aren't going to have a full board against your aggro deck because they're going to be trading the whole game, right? So like, and it's only
that's
4
another
mana.
thing is if
so
you're
like
beating
yeah.
down and then you keep trading off and then you get to put 5 into play with one action. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're gonna end up in a spot where it's only 4 mana. So the turn before you cast it, you don't even have to like not deploy things because you need to bank mana for your 9 mana sorcery to win the game or whatever.
All right.
So, next card for Noxus, 5 mana slow spell called Wild Claws. An ally strikes an enemy. If it has Overwhelm, deal excess damage to the enemy Nexus.
This card's a little too expensive, I think.
This card's like neat in Expedition.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
more
think of
Noxus
how
removal.
good.
Like,
Think of Concerted Strike. It's
Yeah,
fast.
it's this card's good.
And Concerted Strike is harder to disrupt because
It has 2
can't
things
answer with
attacking.
one removal spell usually.
The
Hopefully.
card's good in Expedition. I don't really expect it to see any constructive play.
I think.
It's slow. Like no thanks.
Yeah, slow
Yeah,
is
no thanks.
huge.
I'm off it.
Huge debilitating factor here. And then the next card, Molten Breath, is also slow. Demacia, 6 mana, slow spell. It says an ally with Fury strikes the 2 weakest enemies.
Yeah, so this card, the card that you're striking, has to have Fury has to have Fury. It is going to get bigger, which is nice, but it also only hits their weakest enemies, and it's 6 mana, and it's slow.
No
Let's
thanks.
move on to
No
user
thanks.
questions.
Yeah, no thanks. I'm off this card.
Expedition All-Star?
Yeah, somebody's going to get blown out in Expedition, and that somebody's going to be me, and I'll post the screenshot on Twitter when it happens.
Yeah, they're
but,
like, flip Shyvana, two of your things, and you're like, whatever, man.
Kill
you
you.
did it.
Yeah, or
Great.
the Invulus Vox or whatever, and like draw a bunch of cards. That's why Dragon like eats your whole board.
I mean,
It's like,
Vox only
okay,
makes
whatever.
a card for the first time you kill a thing, so like
The first one's plenty to win the game anyway, usually.
Yeah, it's
the
true.
first card usually wins the game. You don't need to. Yeah, I think that's the culmination of all the new cards. I think we want to take a quick pit stop and talk about everything before we go into viewer questions. So what do you guys think about all the changes in general? Noble, I know you wanted to talk about the state of Targon as a whole.
Yeah. And someone I think asked us a question like kind of about that, so I was.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, totally. So, state of Targon as a whole, hot take, I just am in love with Burblefish. I went I'm currently 20-4 with Zoe TF and 16-2 of that's in Masters. So I just have won 14 more games than I've lost in yes, I have a very insane win rate with that deck in Masters.
Just
What's your LP
burbling
right
people.
Over 200. I'm in the top 50, I think.
Wow.
I'm
going
at
really well,
least
yeah.
top 75, and I won a game recently, and I don't remember if it put me to top 50.
I
or
just
not.
hit 127 and was like, I'll qualify for the tournament now. I'll stop.
So I've been really happy with the Burblefish deck because the games are just so fast that you just climb so quickly, right? Like it doesn't go through the Lee Zoe problem or the Anivia problems or whatever where the games are so slow. And I think it's a pretty healthy bad guy deck to have right now because Withering Wail is really good against it. There's a lot of early interaction that goes a long way against it. So I've enjoyed seeing it on the ladder for the most part. It's a fun deck to play. It's a fun deck to play
Had
against.
a great win rate. I think I was firmly in the camp that the Zoe TF version was better than the Fizz version, and I would die on that hill. But we just got Pale Cascade and Hush nerfed out of that
Probably
deck.
not
and the
true
other deck got
anymore.
untouched and got a new toy that's good with Get Excited and Rummage and not good in this deck. And you also can't play it because Piltover. But very important. Maybe some combination. I think I might try the deck out without Zoe, which is crazy talk, with Aphelios just to see what Aphelios TF feels like. And trying to do some other stuff. But I've won the most insane games with this deck. As in my opponent has a flip Zoe for 4 turns in Lee Zoe, and then it was in one of the Invoke decks. They make their entire board Spell Shield, Elusive, and Lifesteal and have 20 power, and I just killed them 3 turns later by attacking them with elusive units. I just chipped away at them, flipped my TF and my Zoe because they couldn't actually interact with it, and it didn't matter that they had a 9/9 elusive lifesteal spell shield, and I just eventually ground through it, and they just died.
The Burblefish continues.
Yeah, it's
ladies
insane.
and
I got
gentlemen.
Mind Meld, chumped away my whole board except a Zoe, and then flipped that Zoe and killed them for 0 mana, and then they just die.
This easily
It's
could be
absolutely
the
insane.
patch of the Burblefish.
Yeah.
I think it might be looking
So
forward.
most importantly, Targon got nerfed, Demacia Grand Plaza decks got nerfed, and while you were good against both those decks, you're now even better. And we might see the rise of some things that are good against this deck to combat that, and I think we certainly will. But I do think the deck is resilient enough to keep winning and didn't get touched.
I think this is a big meta shakeup.
Bilgewater,
this patch,
besides
for sure.
Misfortune, Bilgewater didn't get touched this pass. I think it was the second best region, and it just emerged entirely unscathed. I know that Misfortune technically got nerfed, but that was an indirect nerf to Demacia.
That was mostly a Scout's nerf.
That was a Scout's nerf,
Yeah, exactly.
not a Bilgewater nerf.
All right. So that's where we think we're at for now. A lot more Burblefish to come. Let's get into our viewer questions from this week. We start off with the Rabbit Returns. They ask, where on the mana curve would you place the Shuriman champions? Do you think the new keyword will be Ascend? What do you think it'll do? So are you thinking they're going to
Ascend
be
has been
expensive
confirmed,
champions
right?
in general?
Has it?
Yeah. I believe that there was a post that was
Oh, okay.
do we know what the champions are?
No,
They're asking us where on the
it's
mana
very
curve they would
abstract.
place
Do you
them.
think they're
Okay.
going to be
Okay.
expensive, cheap? I mean, I'm
4
sure
through
there'll
7.
be a spread, right? There always is.
That's my guess.
And if there is Ascend, they might just use Enlighten. When I think Ascend, I would think a
That's
similar
exactly
thing
what
to
I
Enlighten.
think of as well. But what's the condition? It's obviously not you hit 10 mana crystals. What's
Yeah, probably not. Maybe it's survive combat. Maybe I'm not really sure. Maybe it's have a certain number of cards
because
in your
it's not going to
hand.
be it's not going to be a round timer. I don't think it's going to be a hand. size thing.
Cast a number of spells per game in the game
That
potentially.
could be it. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If it's Ascend, I'm sure it'll be one of those like late game mechanics where like Enlighten, where eventually it turns on and is just a permanent thing for the rest of the game.
Actually, now
probably.
I actually don't think it's going to be like spells. Maybe not.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, it's very speculative. Noble, you got any good ideas? You got any hot takes?
Sorry, I'm looking up to see exactly what we know. And so Shurima was kind of announced with the roadmap at the same time as Aphelios. And I believe there was language in the announcement that was like, your champions you will like find treasure and your champions will ascend. And ascend was capitalized, which is why we think that is like
likely to be a keyword.
The keyword. Yeah. So this keyword is in Magic, and in that game it is 10 plus permanence, which obviously doesn't work in this game, but it might be a full board, makes your things better.
That would make sense.
It could be cards in hand. It could be like life doesn't matter.
I think it's going to be a condition met then bonus, but I don't know what the condition is or the bonus for that matter.
Yeah.
Kind of like
that's such a weird.
I think the bonus is going to be whatever they want the bonus to be. It's going to be like Enlighten. You like this card does this thing instead now.
That's what literally all mechanics are. Like Nightfall, Daybreak, Plunder.
That's true.
Like that's what almost every mechanic ever is. It's just like do the condition.
Mostly I think it's going to be like a permanent bonus type thing. Like I think it's going to be like more similar to Deep than like, Nightfall
then like
gain effect this turn or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So all right.
Deep is a good analogy, and I think that is.
Let's move on here from Dustin.
I didn't get to say, I think Azir is going to be a 4-drop. I think
Nasus
and Renekton are going to be like 5 and 6 drops. And I think like Amumu is going to be like a 1, 2, 3 drop.
I'm taking Azir at 10.
Really?
The Shuriman Emperor. Oh,
you think the Shurima Emperor is more expensive than their literal gods?
No.
Renekton and Nasus?
I mean, yeah. Because I think he's going to like bring an army with him or something cool. He's gonna be like an emperor in a
So
can.
if Azir has a mechanic that fills your board, this also supports the idea of Ascend potentially being about like how many things you have on board or like total power.
Yeah, I could buy that.
I just don't like Azir being the same mana cost as the literal space dragon that creates galaxies. But like whatever.
I mean, the literal space dragon that creates galaxies is also over here. Getting attacked on turn 5 by a big guy with a sword. So
that's true.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, the flavor doesn't really work there ever. So
yeah, same thing's true in League of Legends.
Darius with his axe just kills a soul. Yeah, that's
creator of galaxies, dragon the size of a galaxy. Yeah. There's a little suspension of disbelief regardless.
I mean, that's true.
Did I say Draven? I meant Darius.
Yeah,
Draven, Darius, whoever. Yeah,
they all have
anyone,
access, man.
They all got access.
Access all the way down.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is from Dustin. They ask, after the 10th region is released, where do you think the game will go? Will we see expansions based around Odyssey, Galaxies, such and so forth, or something else?
Skin lines.
Yeah,
KDA.
I think that skin lines are going to be the direction, and perhaps we'll get more updates to champions. Like we'll get a card that is like KDA Ari or whatever. I know like Pokemon does this a lot, where they just release similar champions with a different name that's a different card.
Oh yeah, like the skin cards could just be different cards.
Yeah,
like it could be. Yeah. These are PsyOps champions, and they do like things that are slightly different.
Star Guardian is my like go-to in my mind.
Yeah,
like,
and
I was thinking there could be different versions of champions. Like I could see a Draven that's a 1-drop.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. There's a lot of games that do that. So I think once we have one of every champion card, we're probably going to start to see like that kind of overlap if the game is still continuing in a healthy way. But that's a long way off. There's a lot of champions.
I think we can also note that like once they've released like Shurima is 10 or is 9, and then 10 is Ixtal, almost certainly. And then after that, like we're gonna have 10 regions with like, let's say, generous lot of champion releases between now and then. 100 champions. How many champions? That'll be 100 champions in the game. How many champions are there in League of Legends?
There's like 160 right now.
Yeah, so like that's still a lot of time for
there's
releases.
A long
and 100
time.
was an upwards because like there's like max 7 champions in a region right now. Yeah, max 7 champions in a region right now.
Sounds right.
And we've just did the 8th region, so like by the 10th region, there's going to be maybe about 9 or 10, and then that still leaves like half again as many champions to be released. And the region balances start to get wonky. Like there's way more from Noxus than there is from, there's a ton from Ionia and Noxus, and like less from
Ixtal and Shurima essentially in League of Legends. So
and we have literally every single champion from Targon that exists in this game now. Apparently,
wait, really?
Yeah. If you include,
we don't have Pantheon.
I was just going to say, if you say the warrior is Pantheon, we have every single champion.
That's crazy. I would never have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
With the addition of Aphelios, every single champion from Targon is.
And they might come up with new champions, though I do think that is unlikely, and they might just kind of like reflavor some stuff. For example, knowing things like Thresh is Nocturne is like from the Shadow Isles, but actually, fun fact, Nocturne is a demon. He's not actually doesn't like live in the Shadow Isles. He's just like a demon, and demon just like pop up places from other realms. So he's like currently in the story, I believe, in Demacia, and people thought he might be a Demacia champion, but like they fit him because he thematically fits in the Shadow Isles.
Sure.
So like you could have
You can make a
line
case
of champions
for
from
someone
Noxus
being
being in
somewhere.
Ionia because they're in the process of invading Ionia or whatever.
This makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think there will probably be like events, stuff like that. That's a long way down the line, and I hope we end up in the problem where it's like, man, we've released so much content. Where do we go from here?
It's a win
Please
when
run
they
out of
run
ideas.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Our next question comes from Lee McLeod. They ask, what cosmetics do you like playing with?
Someone else should go first.
This is an easy one. Noble, you're usually the biggest cosmetic guy out of the lot of us.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Well, it's not me.
Well, it's not you.
That's fair.
No.
Really?
None of us play with like.
Yeah, so I guess I will go first. Because,
The lot you're talking to the like we're not very big cosmetic people.
Yeah,
in general.
So I will explain how I feel. I guess I'll explain how I feel about cosmetics. Sorry, Hugh.
yeah.
So in this game, I have never spent any money on any cosmetics. I have the little like moon Poro that is equipped on all my decks because it's not the generic Poro. I don't own any boards. And the first prismatic card that I actually crafted that wasn't from a pouch where you choose one of three was Wiggly Burblefish.
Excellent choice.
Very
and
excellent
that's kind of
choice.
like, and I'm probably, but I didn't snap foil out a deck. Like I don't really care that much about it. I know this is heretical. I only have 6 emotes. I have the basic 6 emotes. They've served me well so far. I kind of want to buy a couple more, but like also I'm just totally a free-to-play player at this point.
Yeah.
I'm kind of content with it.
All right,
So
Hugh.
the reason that Alex thinks that is that in Magic, I'm pretty particular about like wanting to have all the same versions of the card. Because in Magic, there are like will be a card that you're playing in a format and it's legal in like 3 different sets, and there's also foil and there's also like a random alt art. And so like I want them all to be the same. And then like ideally my deck would be like all the original print edition of these modern legal cards unfoiled. But like
unfoiled.
Oh my lord. Yeah, you see.
yeah.
So
but
then-
like that's a different kind of
Yeah,
like
it's a different-
that's a different kind of like swag. Is like I have all Japanese original arts from their earliest set printing. Like that's cool.
Oh yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, and I'm
also not foil.
that's kind of what I'm like into. Magic foiling is trash.
It is now.
It is so variable in quality.
It used to be great.
It did used to be great.
Odyssey, my god.
Yeah,
Good foils.
that's
back
fair.
in the day. All right, Hugh.
okay.
What's your Legends of
So-
Runeterra cosmetic get down?
So, my card back is the default card back.
Okay.
My board
Good.
is the default board.
Okay.
My little pet is the default Poro.
Okay. Do you have any fancy emotes?
I have many.
The emotes, the emotes are the most tempting by a mile.
So the
I've
emotes-
never even considered buying a card back or a board, but man, the emotes.
If you're spending
You don't
money,
even
emotes
use the
are
region
good.
ones
I don't-
that you get for free for finishing
No.
the paths.
No,
oh, yeah,
I didn't
do
know
that
you
for all my
got
decks.
those.
no, I don't. I don't.
You have them all. Yeah, you just like
I have
click
every
on
single
the
one.
card
Oh,
back
I've
in the deck and you just get to change it.
never changed
Absolutely
them.
not. I'm not using any of
Never
those.
opened the menu.
It's free. Why would I use it?
So the emotes are really good though.
The emotes. Okay, so we don't have time at the moment, but we probably need to
this
discuss.
time for the emote tier list. We have time. Just quick.
Okay, so
quick.
real quick.
Yeah, emote tier list. Yeah, it's time.
Lulu emote S tier.
I hate that emote so much. It's
tier emote.
infuriating.
Easily
I look at
S
that,
tier.
I'm like, she just looks so
The
stupid.
the cat one that like tilts its head S tier.
Absolutely
mega
S tier.
tilting.
The
Also-
Jinx emote is the best base emote by a lot, and a strong contender for a top emote in general. Easily S tier. I love the
Oh,
Jinx
yeah, the Jinx emote's
The Jinx
excellent.
emote is
I
so
love the
good.
Shen one. Just it's just like
Well,
my
the
favorite
Shen
thing
one,
about the Shen one,
you need to have it to say GG with. Like you need it.
No,
It's
but
crisp.
I like putting the lethal attack on the stack, quote unquote, like, you know, queuing up the lethal attack and then hitting the Shen emote, and it's a good game whether or not they have the answer and I lose, or they
Or
you
they
know.
don't and you win.
Yeah.
I never GG preemptively. The Nexus needs to be exploding before I hit that button.
I will spam spam DM Jinx emotes, but I will never press the Shen emote out of bad faith. I am a good faith Shen emote user, and I will spam,
I'm a BM.
I will
emote
spam
user.
the Jinx emote for BM for the whole
what
game
does
if you
BM
misclick
mean?
on
Bad manner.
If you
Bad manner.
If
Bad
you
manner.
misclick on turn 3 and accidentally chump block, like I'm a Jinx emote spam the whole game. You bet your ass.
Victor emote, not gonna lie, thought I was gonna be S tier. It's like A minus.
Yeah, it could be better.
It could
I'm
be
a
better.
big fan of Ezreal sweating.
Ezreal sweating's great.
Ezreal
I like
sweating
the
is an S tier
Vladimir one.
emote.
Quinn is
Vladimir
another one I
one's really
hate because
good.
it's stupid.
The Quinn one is good. I really him and Valor
Vladimir's
just
a
chilling.
very good alternative to the Braum emote. Like
I
see
just hate it
people,
when I mix click and then they just like Lulu or Quinn one and I lose my mind. I know that's
I know,
the point.
and see that's why you emote.
Lily just sipping out of that drink is so good. It's
Yeah,
so
what
good.
is she drinking?
Who knows? No, purple.
Purple.
Yeah, she's drinking purple.
Yeah, exactly. Like these emotes.
I just realized what I'm excited for, and it'll be the first emote I buy. But you finish your thing.
I was just gonna say emotes. People don't fully appreciate the gameplay relevance of
Just
emotes.
tilting.
You're not
People-
getting your emote value if you aren't. Like, you need to get it. It's,
Yeah, you need to.
I frequently laugh out loud in my own room playing this game by myself when me and my opponent just go on this like S tier emote rampage.
emote equity is real.
It's
I
real.
really love the hit one emote, different emote. Like when you hit the chain and it's just like a really funny story. Like those are good ones too. Like the Heimerdinger Jinx Shen is like a really good
They're
like
really-
intro.
I'm a
into
really
the emote
overlap.
path.
I'm a really big fan of Heimerdinger, Jinx, Darius. those are really good.
Yeah.
The plan went awry.
The Amumu crying emote is going to be incredible.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's
it totally
That's
is.
going to be
So good.
great. Yeah.
All right. Moving on. This is our question of the week. This one
yeah.
comes from Richard Ayad. They ask, what sort of things do you
Congratulations,
look
Richard.
for in Expedition draft bins? Which champs do you think are first pick traps? This is our question of the week because we love Expedition.
Oh, dude, I love Expedition. I haven't played it in so
Expedition
long
is
because I'm a
sick.
hardcore Spike right now.
I love Expedition.
I don't know about
Any
you
chance
guys,
I get to talk about
but
it.
I think my like top 3 first pick traps are like Karma, Diana. Struggling to think of a third one, honestly.
I've got
Vladimir.
I've got the
Riven.
best answer. Twisted Fate.
I think that's Riven's just a trap.
Fate's
theory.
great.
Twisted Fate is the first pick trap in
Oh,
Expedition.
100% agreed. Didn't
It
even
is a
think of that.
trap. It's not that good. It's
not
really
good.
good in constructed. It's not very good in Expedition, I think.
I think it's
That's my take
terrible.
on Twisted Fate. Yeah, that's the biggest trap. In
No,
my
but like the
opinion.
fact you don't need to flip him, just like play him and he's good. Like
No,
he's
he's-
probably
but
worse
he's
than
not,
a lot of
though.
champions.
he is good, but the problem is that like in
You never
Expedition,
flip
I
him.
really think that like flipping a champion and having it be good enough is the best way to win. So the champions that I think are the best in Expedition are like Lux, Callista, Tryndamere, champs that just like are going to flip and win the
Darius.
game. Like, yeah, Darius is fine.
Yeah, there's really
but,
okay.
like
I've been thinking about this dichotomy a lot recently. There are two types of champions in Legends of Runeterra. There are ones that are like pretty good on rate, and then there are ones that your goal is to flip them. And I think like Darius is a champion that like is good on rate. Like it's not like you really have to meet a condition and flip him. The same is true with like Tryndamere.
Yeah.
And like Anivia, they're just going to flip and are good cards the whole time. Karma is kind of true
Karma's kind
because
of
you
a
don't
middle
like
ground.
actively do it. And then there are the champions like Twisted Fate where you just like need to flip it and then it's very good. Like Shyvana and Garen are both just like good rate champions. Though they're still good to flip. And so like
I think the build around ones are usually much better.
yeah, so like in Expedition, building around a champion, trying to flip it and then do its really powerful thing is very good.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I think Twisted Fate is my trap champion. Stay away from that one in Expedition. That's my advice.
But it's not like bad.
No,
like,
it's not bad. It's just not that
It is
good.
much better than almost any other common or rare card, and worse than a good number of epics. But like it doesn't compare particular favor to like Eminent Benefactor.
Yeah, it just
So
doesn't.
it's, like,
it just
not
doesn't
great.
win the game.
If you
really.
want a really good example of a feast or famine champion in Expedition, look no further than Nautilus. The amount of times
Oh, yeah.
I have first picked Nautilus with the Terrors of the Deep pack archetype going, hell yeah, let's draft some sea monsters. And I shit you not a single sea monster shows up in my draft.
It's true. I've heard
Many
I've
times.
Heard,
I'm just off Nautilus. It,
it
just
happens all the time. Yeah, especially
Malphite's not a
with
trap,
war
but is
sets.
bad. It's not a trap because he doesn't look alluring because the champion's just bad.
Yeah,
but don't
the
play that
champion
one
has to like be you have to think to yourself, maybe that's good for a thing to be a trap.
Ezreal's not that good, but he's still fine.
You
It's
stop
just like
talking.
a mystic
You
shot
shut your
machine.
mouth about my love.
He's good as a
Ezreal.
mystic shot machine, but you're not like trying to transform him usually.
Yeah. So real quick, I think what sort of things do I look for in expedition draft bins? The champions is the first thing. So like mostly on the first few picks, you look at the champions. And
Yeah.
like the supporting cards will absolutely break ties for me. But most of the time, I'm looking for good playable on-right cards in an expedition draft bins, and I'm trying to find. I would rather pick 2 good cards rather than a great card and an unplayable card most of the time.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
To answer that question, very
Yeah, you don't want bad
very
cards in your
generally.
deck. It sometimes gives you the option to get them out of there, but not that good.
Yeah, avoid them if you can.
And the important thing about champions is you get 2 champions to start, champion pack. And then after your first fin, you get another champion, and it will always give you an option of the 2 champions that you already have and a third champion. And then when you get more champions, like if you pick Teemo Ezreal, you will always be able to get 3 Teemos by the time you have 3 champions. So like if you want to really hard build around something, it does let you do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the build around ones are especially good because you can just like have 3 Zoes in your deck.
All right.
Pick on rate. I was just
sorry,
gonna say pick on rate good cards that are just generally good without the need of other cards
And removal.
And that's
Yeah,
that falls under that umbrella.
Yeah, true.
And if you can afford to, go ahead and also draft synergy, but don't prioritize it over.
And it depends though, because sometimes the synergy is really good. Like the
synergy
Daybreak
decks have
package is just,
higher
like, insane.
higher ceilings.
If it's like a very, very low, if it's just a 2-card synergy that you're going to see frequently, absolutely. If it's like a 3 or 4 card thing that you're like, this is good, but only if it hits these other things.
That's fair. Yeah,
There's
the deck's
a-
just not that consistent.
There's a breaking
Yeah,
point.
this makes sense.
Anyway,
All right, our next couple of questions are a lot of what we talked about in the episode, but I'll read them real quick and we can pick out any things in particular we want to say. So, first one comes from Tede. They ask, of the revealed cards, and how do you see the nerfs and buffs and new cards impacting the meta? Which do you identify as possible includes in already established decks? So we talked about that
so I would
quite a
say-
bit. Any last thoughts there?
Bilgewater stock is skyrocketing. Targon stock falling, but
Sell.
hold.
Sell.
Hold. Do not sell.
Hold.
Do not sell
No,
Targon stock.
Yeah, okay. Hold Targon stock. I'm down to hold the Targon
It's the GME analogy. In this. But the new, I would say that, but they're all like, there's a bunch of powerful new Targon cards coming out, including a new champion. So just with the buffs and nerfs, I think Targon got knocked down a notch and Bilgewater brought up a notch, and I already thought they were pretty close as second most powerful regions. So definitely Wiggly Burblefish, but we'll see what Aphelios does.
Yeah.
But Aphelios is not good against the card.
And that
Wiggly
very much
Burblefish,
also
so.
answers our next question, which was what decks are winners and losers of these balance changes?
Don't
and
play
new
scouts.
cards that came
Don't
from
try to
Dragon?
play scouts anymore until you see some evidence that it's still good. I would
yeah,
not, I would not
let
just queue up
someone
scouts.
else fall on that sword
Yeah.
because someone will.
Absolutely.
Many people will, because that's just either it's their job to do so or they really like scouts.
All right. And lastly, they ask stress testing in Burblefish decks? Yes. Yes. I'm pretty excited.
100%.
About that.
Yep.
All right. Next up, Twilight asks, when Champion Mastery comes to the game, which champions are you guys going to get to Mastery level 7 first?
I think when this gets unlocked, I will just like automatically get TF Champion Mastery. They'll just be like, yeah, you can have it. I've played so many games with decks with that champion in it.
I would like to think
Lee
that
Sin.
if it was unlocked right now, I think my answer would be Zoe. But obviously the meta will change in the future, and I'm not entirely sure. But if it was released today, Zoe.
TF for me, and then Zoe second.
Mine would either be Lee Sin or TF. It would be Lee Sin because I played an ungodly amount of Lee Sin Zed before Zoe existed. Now it's Lee Zoe, but like I love Lee Sin. I've always loved Lee Sin.
Lee Sin's so sweet.
Yeah.
All right, and our last question for the day. This one comes from Cloud Aisha. They ask, TF is currently regarded as the best champion in the game.
Agreed.
Do you think it's TF himself that's strong or the surrounding cards that enable him? Do you believe that a nerf of some sort is deserved either to him or his adjacent cards?
I was just going to say, I think we can all agree that a nerf is not at all necessary.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that
Cool.
it is
What would
one
you
of the
do
best champions.
is the real thing.
9 cards instead of 8.
Oh, I don't think that actually changes that much.
I don't think so either, but it's a nerf.
Yeah.
I just want to leave TF as it is. I think that TF is such a great best card to have in the game. Like, I can think of no
It's not
better
unhealthy.
quote unquote
One of the
best
problems
card
is
to have
that
in a
like
game.
you basically it's kind of like Splinter Twin where you just like have to play removal spells.
Exactly.
But that's probably good.
Yeah, I just don't. I just
But, like,
don't have a problem
Vengeancing
with
Twisted Fate is the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to do that, and that sucks when you have to do that. But like, Twisted Fate is such a good on-rate card, and that's just it. He's just good. He's efficient. He's a threat, and
He's good but not great against aggro and control in his just like base forms.
and he can just draw a card when he needs to. I
Yeah.
just think he's such a good like quote unquote boogeyman to have. Like
Yeah,
he never feels
he's
awful to play.
He never
against.
feels. I mean, eventually he'll feel unfair when he flips, but that's because he flipped. Like you needed to, you screwed up. Like that's your fault.
Usually, yeah, absolutely. And that's
Obviously,
how they're gonna win
sometimes
the
they
game.
have like rummage, and there's nothing you could have done. But
Yeah, and then they win the game, and that's okay.
and that's
okay.
sometimes your opponent
Sometimes
has the
that happens
nut.
in discard aggro or
Yeah,
the Feel the
exactly.
Rush has the perfect answers into Feel the Rush on turn.
It's not
8
an
or
unhealthy
whatever.
card. It's not overstated. It's not like it's just it's a 2/2
feels really good to
with
play.
quick attack. It feels good to play.
If they made that card like a 2/1, it would be
It
a
feels
huge nerf.
that would be
TF gets the champ
huge
select
nerf.
stamp of approval. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, because it has
Unsurprisingly.
inevitability. Like you need to deal with it, but you don't necessarily need to deal with it fast. But then, like if you don't deal with
You
it
can
fast,
just kill them. Like
yeah. If you don't deal with it fast, there's this weird tendency to like forget about it, and then all of a sudden you pass the turn, you're like, wait, he just flipped. Like, oh no,
Oh, yeah.
that's happened to me like many times.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So with that, I think that brings all of our procedures to a close for the day. Do any of you guys have any last thoughts you want to add before we wrap it up? Noble?
no.
You?
Not really.
Wonderful.
Maybe. That's no. We're good.
That's
I'm excited
that's
to
it?
play with the new chat. The
Yeah,
new
I was-
thing.
that's about it.
The seasonal tournament in like 3 weeks.
Oh
Soon,
god,
yeah.
the seasonal
The,
tournament.
the end of the season's coming up pretty quick.
And I think
so
we're all easily going to qualify through Masters
I
Ladder.
would hope so. That's the plan, at least.
should.
So.
I also have 4 prime glories, so and I'm taking Friday off work, so I better.
We got it
qualify.
on lock.
Yeah,
You-
like I like
Q's
put
got
it,
all the
I put in my like
locks.
PTO forms like last week. Like
preparing.
I have Legends of Runeterra to play.
All right. So we want to thank you all for listening and sticking with us through this long episode. We'd like to thank our Discord, as per usual, for providing all of our questions and awesome content over the last week. If you want to be a member of our Discord, you can go ahead and check the description of this wherever you're listening to it, and you'll find a link to be able to join it. You can also follow us on Twitter. Same thing. Link for that will be in the description. And with that, we'll see you all next week with another episode of Champ Select.